Hi, my name is Lynnette Marrero, and I am a spirits educator, bartender, and philanthropist. Today we're going to find out a little bit more about a cocktail that has gained popularity over the years, the Old Fashioned. Why do we love the Old Fashioned? It's a simple cocktail that you use to really highlight the base spirit. So this cocktail is usually relegated to aged spirits. Traditionally, it was first made with things like cognac, rye, bourbon, but now you can expand that to so many different aged spirits. Here we can include even things like Scotch whiskey using a single malt. So what the elements that you want to think about with the Old Fashioned is, one, what spirit am I using? Am I using a spicy rye? Am I using a bourbon that has a little bit more of maybe those baking spices and caramel? Am I using a Scotch whiskey? Where's that whiskey from? Is it going to have a little bit more salinity? Is it going to have a little more heather, rye, maltiness to it? So in this case, I'm going to start just with a traditional, with a rye. So with the rye, it has a bit of spice notes to it already. So I wouldn't have to use a syrup that then has maybe as much. I could just use a regular simple syrup or a sugar cube. With our bourbon, you can get a little bit of fun. Like I said, it has some of those notes like caramel, vanilla, all those kind of aromas really come out. So maybe you want to bring those elements out a little bit more, and maybe you want to take maybe a honey that you've infused with some spices, or take your rich demerara, so a sugar that has a little bit more of that caramel in it, and use that, or just add spices to your normal simple syrup. Or you can just use simple syrup on its own, and then we'll flavor it with another component. But thinking about that, also maple syrup or any other sugar item, when we're talking about ways of incorporating that element in, like I said, you use your sugar cube, your different syrups, but you can just go ahead in your fridge, grab a maple syrup. That'll bring really nice aroma. The body won't be quite as rich as a simple, so you can actually have a lighter kind of less viscous Old Fashioned. So last but not least, we're going to add our salt and pepper, our bitters. So this is kind of a moment to add a finishing touch. So you might want to use your classic aromatic bitters or Angostura bitters. Normally you can find that in a supermarket, and those bring out similar aromas of like cinnamon, anise, some of those baking spices. If you are thinking of using that, you might use that with all the different variants, so Scotch or rye or bourbon. However, if you want to kind of highlight some other notes, you can go ahead and use like a mole or a chocolate bitters in addition to that. So maybe with, the whiskey, the bourbon here, I find in Elijah Craig I get some chocolate notes. So I might want to amplify that with a dash or two of some mole or chocolate bitters. But then if I'm thinking about my Scotch here or my rye, I might want to add some beautiful orange notes. So I also have my orange bitters that just add that extra bright fruit note to it, and maybe pair with some of those more spicy notes that you have. You can do a combination of these bitters, choose one, but play around. This is all about experimentation and tasting your whiskey and finding what notes are in there to compare or contrast with. So we're going to go ahead and make one. I'm going to show you how to do it with a sugar cube, just because if you don't have the syrups at home, you could always buy some cubes. You can have a white sugar cube like we have here, or you can get one of those dark brown ones as well if you want some more of that cane aroma. So the way to kind of break this up is to dash it with your bitters. So I'm going to use 2, 3, 4 dashes of the Angostura bitters. Now I'm doing 4 dashes because these kind of special dashers, every 1 dash is like a half dash if you would take it out of one of those bottles of big ones. So it'd be 2 dashes maybe of your big bottle of Angostura, but with this it's 4 dashes. I'm also going to add 1 dash of orange bitters as well, because I really love that flavor and aroma. If I wanted to get kind of a Creole New Orleans style in there, I would add some of these Peychaud bitters, which add some more kind of fennel and green notes. So maybe depending on what whiskey you're using, you might want to add that as well. So then we're going to go ahead and add just a splash of soda water. And this is just helping me to break down the sugar cube. So normally the simple syrup or what you're using would have would have that. I'm gonna use this heavier spoon just to kind of break it up. You can use a muddler if you have it. I kind of like using, a wooden spoon at home would work as well if you don't have a muddler, but you're just breaking up that sugar, letting it break down with the bitters here, because we want that to mix and incorporate well with our whiskey. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this rye whiskey, very robust, 6 years, having some beautiful aromas that are gonna go well with those orange and Angostura bitters. And I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 ounces And as you notice, I'm doing this all just straight into my old-fashioned glass. I don't need to use a separate mixing tin to do this because it will just work just fine in here. You want water and dilution with your old-fashioned. I'm giving it a nice little dry stir. If I was using a syrup, I would already have put my ice in here. But since I'm using the sugar cube, I want to have as much at room temperature of mixing to incorporate it a little bit better. All right, now I'm going to grab some ice. Okay, so I'm using this nice big cube. You could also use something like your kind of 1x1, your sort of larger normal ice cubes. But this one is a nice big ice cube because like I said, I'm stirring in this glass and I'm gonna let it dilute at a slower pace. So for a minute, I'm just gonna let it kind of incorporate a bit here and I'm gonna stir it. And what I'm looking for here for dilution is kind of see the cocktail increase by about half. So when it started, you saw it was a lot lower, but I'm seeing kind of the water being incorporated into here as it's going up the glass. And now it's kind of right to about 3/4 the way up this cube. This is a quite long cube, but normally probably if you're having those 2x2 silicone ones, it'll still be like below the ice wash line. Great, and then the final note here I'm gonna add is to take some fruit. I'm gonna use an orange peel, and so I'm using a vegetable peeler. I'm peeling it close to the glass. I've kept, if you didn't notice, my hand away, so I'm holding at the top here. I have my peeler, kept my hands out of the way because we do not wanna cut ourselves. And then once I pull it a little bit, I hold it down to finish off. Then when you're going to garnish this, you wanna have the shiny side out because we're gonna express all that orange. And what's nice about using that peeler is that I don't get a lot of the pith, so I don't get a lot of bitterness. But I just want that fresh oil, so I'm gonna go ahead and spray that over the drink. And then I also like to rub that around the rim of the glass, so that way I'm also getting that beautiful aroma and orange oil on the palate. I'm gonna go ahead and garnish this. I like making sure it's facing my guests forward. And then you have your delicious rye old fashioned. Cheers.